And good morning from me. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CAC 16. It's 9 o'clock, according to the various timepieces staring me in the face. So let's get started this morning. I'm Stephen Manley. I'm our Application Services Manager here at the Virginia State Police. And we're delighted that you're here with us this morning. A couple of announcements as we get started. First of all, if you find yourself having trouble with some sort of tech support issue during the conference, then you can either Teams chat or email Gurinder. Gurinder Preet is one of our Scrum Masters here at VSP, and he will be delighted to help you if he possibly can. The second thing I'll mention is that in order to keep us on schedule this morning, Nick Manetti from Wildlife Resources will be helping us watch the clock. So he's the timekeeping sheriff this morning, and Nick, thank you for that help.
Sure thing, thanks.
Next thing is we're going to talk to you a little bit about today's retrospective, and to get us started there, I'm going to turn the mic over to Barbara Phillips. Barbara.
Hello and good morning, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm actually going to put something in the chat as well. This morning, myself and Andre will be partnering in your retrospective. And for those who are not familiar with the retrospective, it's an opportunity for you to give us feedback so we can increase quality and effectiveness of the next CAAC. The way we have been running these is that, am I sharing my screen? Not yet. 1 second. There we go. What we ask you to do is, and we found this to be very successful, is as you have ideas about what went well, what didn't go so well, or and maybe even just some improvement ideas, where you can go out to the board during the entire conference and go ahead and preload your ideas there. There is a button if you are bringing up something that you don't want your name attached to. You can add this incognito button here, but otherwise it's just a basic retro board or any type of board where you add a sticky and put your comments. So, and then for those who might have issues, you can just log in as a guest. If you do have issues, you can put your message into chat and we can transpose it for you. Otherwise, the success of our retrospectives are on us. The feedback, both positive and opportunistic, excuse me, is greatly appreciated. So thank you, and I will see you again at the end of the conference.
All right, thanks, Barbara. And for those of you who need some extra help with getting there, the QR code on the screen will take you to that retrospective board that Barbara just showed you. So you can hit that with your phone, or you can click on the link that's in the chat and have that pulled up on the side and add your thoughts throughout the morning. And what does the morning look like? So for today's agenda, our first session this morning is going to be provided by some folks from DMV. Commissioner Gerald Lackey and his portfolio management team are going to give us their take on business value at DMV, followed by our usual break at 10:15. We'll take a 15-minute break there. And then for our second session, the VSP Firearms team is going to take a look at business value from the Scrum team's perspective. And of course, after that, we're going to have our retrospective and we'll close out the morning. So, first poll of the morning. This is the unofficial poll, of course. What's this? Any thoughts? So this is my father's folding rule. And when I was growing up learning basic carpentry from him, he used his folding rule for measuring anything up to 6 feet long. Claimed that it was more accurate than a tape measure. Now, I got to ask, has anyone used or even seen one of these before? You can come off mute or you can type in the chat. One hand raised. Yeah, I don't know if these are actually more accurate than tape measures or not. I do know you can pinch the fool out of your fingers with them if you're not careful. I also know a couple of things about what this is worth. You can buy one new for about 18 bucks. I did not know they were still available, but they are. The second one is, of course, this one is missing a piece, and it's at least 55 years old, probably older. To anyone else, its net value is next to zero. It's not old enough to be an antique, and it's not complete. To me, it's worth quite a lot. I have a lot of memories wrapped up in this old rule. Well, that takes us to our first official poll of the morning. What does value mean? So please hit that QR code and give me a quick answer. What do you think value means? So we have a few really good answers here. Adds to or increases something in a positive way, something that can't be counted. Interesting. Purpose, result, useful, something I can use. Worth, obviously several folks have typed in worth in this word cloud. That's the big vote getter so far. Let's give it another 15 seconds or so. Positive impact. Principles or beliefs. Now yes, that's very interesting. A different take. All right, let's move on and see what the dictionary says about value. The regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. Your support is of great value. Or a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. They internalize their parents' rules and values. Or to estimate the monetary worth of something. His estate was valued at $45,000. Or to consider someone or something to be important or beneficial, to have a high opinion of. So she had come to value her privacy and independence. I think a lot of what our ideas about value are, according to that last poll, kind of fall into like 1 and 4. But that's what the dictionary says. So I got to ask the next poll question: is value the same for everyone, and why or why not? What do you think? So value depends on what you're working on. Different for everyone. Needs to be defined. Value is subjective, so it's different for everyone. Value can be based on perception, and that's different depending on the person. Different people need different things. Interesting. So you can see on this response, those words that appear across the top of the screen, just indicating some words that are being used more than once as people answer. And what we get is the value is different. A lot of people saying value is different, clearly. It's subjective, it's based on perception. Well, there are lots of different ideas about value. When you ask a group of people what's important or what's valuable to them, you're going to frequently get responses like this: family, money, land or property, or nature, or being alone. I mean, we're all put together differently. We all have different ideas about what's valuable. Last poll: outside of work, what's the most important thing in your life right now? Knowing the way some folks feel about pickleball, it's not terribly surprising to me that that showed up on this survey. And I'd have to second the coffee vote. Yes, coffee, very important. But clearly also family here is getting the big vote. Family and health, spiritual connection, personal growth and family, mental health. Now at work, things are a little different. We're typically not faced with an emergency like saving one thing from a burning building. The value question is different, isn't it? We all face value questions every day. Everything from what do I do next to what shall I have for lunch to what do I have to get done this week? And beyond the personal tactical conversations that we have running in the back of our heads all the time, there are the larger questions. What should this project include? Or what should I plan for my team to do next? Now today, we're focused on business value. And after all, the first Agile principle states that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. And we have a team from DMV that's getting us started on that conversation this morning. DMV is headed up by Dr. Gerald Lackey. He's a transformation leader with over 15 years of experience helping government agencies and Fortune 50 companies modernize systems, improve efficiency, and deliver better outcomes. He currently leads the Virginia DMV's multi-year transformation, replacing legacy systems and embedding AI into daily operations to enhance customer and employee experience. And previously at GAF, he spearheaded award-winning innovations like Timberline HDZ roofing shingles, which, and this just freaks me out, won Popular Science's Top Innovation Award in 2020. Dr. Lackey began his career at McKinsey & Company and holds a PhD in social psychology from UNC Chapel Hill and a bachelor's degree from Duke University. Working along with Dr. Lackey this morning, we have Latrice Ampey. She's the Chief Product Owner and Agency Portfolio Director at DMV. And then Lauren Bangs and Ava Adnauer, who are Senior Portfolio Analysts on her team. Dr. Lackey and team, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I said do the short intro of me. That was the long intro. Can you hear me okay, and do I look okay on the screen?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, we're not in the same room, so Ava, are you the one driving the presentation so I know who to point to if I need something?
Yes, I'll be driving. I just started sharing my screen.
Okay, great.
And
I'll wait till you get it maxed. Okay, that's you, Ava? Okay, great. Well, listen, thank you. No, I don't think so, because I'm still looking at somebody else's background, a Verizon screen. Now the screen sharing's gone off altogether.
We're coming back up, Gerald. Okay, here we go.
All right. All right, so folks, just to roadmap for you a little bit what we're going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about value from the highest level and bring that all the way down to the level at which our portfolio teams then take that articulation of value and jump into working with the delivery teams to craft initiatives, prioritize those, and execute and deliver them. So I was really excited, Stephen's introduction there, because I was seeing things like value is about worth, it's about importance, and it's subjective, and there's not one right definition of value. And, you know, outside of work, we talk a lot about making sure that, you know, we are healthy and have full lives and are taken care of. This ties directly into how public sector defines value. As a public sector entity, we're not in the purpose of maximizing profit for shareholders. We're in the business of making sure people are taken care of in providing some sort of a public good or a public service. And that's very important. And starting from that point, we have to think about what does value mean to us in terms of our mission, our vision, our strategy, etc. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about some of these large concepts, but I'm going to explain why they're so important, because just as folks were saying, there is no right definition of value. It is subjective, and it's about worth, and it's about what's important. But how do you know what's important, and how do you know what's worth, what's worthy? If you're an execution team, you can't just be told to go and maximize, quote, business value, even in a business context, but especially in a public sector context. You need your senior executives to do some work, to break down and put some definition around and some scope around what do they mean by value. Only when they do that can you then pick it up and take it forward into your work to make it meaningful and deliver something to them. So we're going to talk about mission and vision. Mission is the purpose. It's why you exist as an agency. The beauty about public sector is that we actually have that defined somewhere in code. The DMV's mission is laid out in 46.2. And that for us is the starting point of why we exist. From there, we look towards a vision. The vision is how do we carry out that mission within a certain epoch or era or period of time. Usually you're talking about a decade. Right. So the DMV's mission hasn't changed that much from 1924 to 2024. But boy, how we deliver on that mission is very different in 2024. And the decade of 24 to 34 is a lot of changes going to be coming along in the transportation industry. So we better have a vision that encapsulates what is it that we really stand for in this era. Strategic interests. Once you have a mission and a vision, you know your purpose, you know how you live your purpose in the current day and time. How do you translate that into something that's a bit more focused? Some lenses. I like to think of strategies as lenses, or like a flashlight in the dark, right? It's not flipping a switch and you see everything and you do everything. It's a flashlight because you're focused on one particular thing. You may have one, you may have two, you may have three flashlights, but that focus now says, in service of my mission, in the era in which I'm living, these are the things that I'm going to focus on in this dark room, and I'm going to illuminate them. You typically think about those over that 5 to 10 period, because those strategies may last for usually for that duration of time. So at DMV, we spent time going through, once we clarified our mission and we made some small changes to it in terms of wording, and we even added one. We then, that we felt was in code but not articulated in our mission. We clarified our vision. This is just the top 8 people in the organization doing that work. Then we involved actually the top 30 leaders to say, what are our strategic interests? And we came up with 3 of those strategic interests that provided some focus for us. We'll talk about those in a minute. But even at that point, even though you know what your purpose is, you know how you're living that purpose in today's world, you know where your flashlights are pointed and what you think is important in the next 10 years, what are your objectives? You've got to get more concrete for the teams to be able to do something, because if you write your strategic interests right, they're as broad as you can be with being as focused as you can be. If you're too focused, you don't have enough to do for 10 years. Right? So they're still fairly broad, and they don't give enough clarity to the teams around what is it that you want me to do when you say optimizing business value, right? Or you say increasing customer satisfaction. Great. Tell me a little bit more, because there's lots of ways I could imagine doing that. That's where your objectives come in. Your objectives now, usually 3 to 5 years. Are you talking about wanting to reduce churn? That's an objective to improve customer satisfaction. Are you talking about reducing wait times in service centers? Are you talking about trying to resolve issues the first time people come in the door, which is, I guess, related to churn? Are you trying to talk about having a friendly, positive experience? Not about speed, not about solving the problem on first visit, but it's about the experience you have. You can each imagine that, with a focus on customer experience, you could start to say these different objectives may make sense in different contexts. So those objectives provide a little bit more focus. Then you get into these key results. The key results break down each objective into something. I prefer choosing one thing, because you could measure 15 things, and you might. But how do you focus the organization on just a few things? And that's where the key results come in. I look at them over a 12 to 18 month period of time. You want something that's going to change. You could certainly have something that changes more rapidly, like quarterly or even monthly. But sometimes you're going to be looking at things like customer satisfaction. It doesn't move up and down that much in aggregate. You're going to be looking for big shifts over at least a quarter and typically up to a year or more. So those would be tied to each one of your objectives. So now you've kind of set the table with your mission, your purpose, your vision, how you live that purpose in a particular era, your strategic interests, which are your focus areas in that dark room that are not too big, not too small, your objectives now looking in on something 3 to 5 years, and a key result, something tied to those objectives that give you your team something to maximize. Now I've given the teams just everything that they need to do. I've set the table. I've told you I want you to I want you to increase customer satisfaction by 10% in the next 12 months because I'm focused on that as an objective, and that ties up to my strategic interests, which is how I envision fulfilling my mission in the next 10 years. So we're going to give some examples of those, and I'm going to then ask you to do an exercise before we move down to that next level where we're talking about where a lot of us spend our time, which is on our portfolio of work and the projects that we drive. Next slide. So DMV's mission is 4 pillars. We safeguard lives, we secure identities, we serve the motoring public, and we support industry partners. I like to, in shorthand, say that serving is our passion, but safeguarding is our priority. And we really, these things are not, there's no one above the other. They're always in tension with one another. Sometimes we're safeguarding lives by telling people they can't drive anymore. That's a bit in conflict sometimes to conserving the motoring public. Securing an identity. Sometimes we tell people we can't give you a license because you don't have the information that you need. And again, that's sometimes in contradiction to serving the motoring public, but it's the one period or point in time when you show up in front of somebody physically and prove who you are. So these things are really important to us. And if you're using them correctly as a senior executive team, you're talking about them when you're having to make really tough decisions. The vision, always driving forward. It's about continuous improvement. It's about focused on not being stuck in the way we have done things. Right? But imagining how we could do things. It's about innovating. It's about adopting technology. It's really about setting the framework for the next 100 years of the DMV. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary last year, 1924 to 2024. Always driving forward is about us taking that mission and making it relevant for the next 100 years. Next page. Our strategic interest, we picked 3. By the way, to get to that mission and vision, 9 months of work. You say, Gerald, what do senior leaders do for 9 months to come up with those words? Well, if they really mean something, you need to spend the time talking about it and telling stories about it and debating it. And when you do that, then you can start to make it real for folks. You don't go into a room. It's not an HR exercise. It's not a communications exercise. It's send it to a consultant, have them make you a pretty poster that you can hang up on the wall. If you do it that way, they are meaningless. The only way that your mission and vision are important are when your senior executive team are using them in their regular conversations to help make decisions. Right? And that does take time. For us, it took about 9 months for us to all get on the same page. And believe you me, there were many times when we would sit in a room going, why are we debating this? But we wouldn't trade it now that we know what the value is for any of the headache that it took to get there. On the strategic interest side, we engaged the broader group of 30 top leaders. We came up with inspiring public confidence, which for us means championing safety, security, and service, that future-proofing the agency, letting the Commonwealth know that the agency is laying the foundation for the next 100 years. We're not stuck in the past. Driving operational efficiency, using data to make decisions. It's easier said than done. We meet 3 hours every month to go over metrics, our operating metrics. Never did that before. Super critical to how we see that. And that was one of the initiatives that came out of this desire, this strategic desire to drive decisions with data under driving operational efficiency. Fostering employee involvement, having a fulfilling life, making a difference, developing real experience. I saw a number of those things pop up and what value means to us. And the focus on employee involvement has led us to do things like, hey, we might need to get an HRIS system. And where have we put that in our portfolio? We might need to do market back pay. Where have we put that in our portfolio? So knowing that that's a strategic interest for us, and that's about always driving forward and laying that foundation for 100 years, allows us to then imagine the initiatives that we want to do and then put them into a portfolio and prioritize them. All right, now let's go and do an exercise, shall we? Oh, we got one more, objectives and key results. I forgot about those. So important. I'm a little bit of a ham, right? So I like to write these OKRs. Folks who know them, they came out of, Google uses them extensively, but they actually came out of some previous work prior to Google. But nonetheless, I like to give a kitschy name for the objective, and then I like to describe it. And you could also put description could really be the key result for it. Churn no more is our new focus on customers, and it's ensuring customers' matters are addressed promptly. We're measuring that now by looking at the net promoter score. Perfect 10 was where we started back in 2023, and it was really about managing wait and service times of 10 minutes or less. Those two are both customer related, so there are two objectives related to one of our strategic interests. Perfect wait, reducing truck pull-ins to the national average of 34%. We're actually at 67% right now in Virginia, so we're pulling in twice as many trucks as we need to. Halt the heist is reducing car thefts by 2%. And country roads safely home, 10% reduction in fatalities on rural roadways by the end of 2027. I will not explain to you how we got to all of those metrics and all of these OKRs, but understand that it took us another, I would say, 9 months to take our strategies and turn those into OKRs. So if you're adding up my time here, 9 months to get to a really solid articulation of our mission and vision that anyone on the senior executive team could articulate, probably about 4 months after that to get to the top 30 aligning around our strategic interests, and another 9 months to really lock down the multi-year objectives and the key results tied to them. If you guys don't have these things, you should be asking for them. It's very hard to prioritize against business value if you don't understand what that means to your senior executives. They have to do the work to provide these things to you guys so that then you know where to drive the rest of the organization. There's, for us, there's 30 of our senior executives, and I got another 1,970 full-time employees. Those 1,970 full-time employees need those top 30 to do the work that I just described to you. All right, let's give, now we're going to go into an exercise to give you a chance to practice a little bit. I'm going to read the prompt to everybody, and then we're going to do that together. And then Ava is going to break you out into breakout rooms. If you've never done this before, basically you don't have to do anything. All of a sudden, you're going to disappear from this big room, and you're going to reappear in a much smaller room with about 4 or 5 people. There's 61 of us, so we're going to have somewhere around 15 different rooms. In that room, if you look in the chat, what I'm about to read to you today is going to be in the chat. So you don't have to remember this, but it will be helpful for you as you go in there. If you haven't been paying attention to me and you've been getting a coffee and doing other things, now is the time to listen, because otherwise you will feel really dumb when you get into a breakout room of 4 people and none of you remember what you're supposed to do. So now is the time to listen. We're giving you a fictitious company and an example to give you an opportunity to practice writing an objective and key result. Here's the prompt. Imagine you are the leadership team. So when you get in your room, you 4 or 5 people are the leadership team for a new state agency called the Drone Control Board. This agency's mission is to define the rules and regulations for drone airspace and to license drone operators, ranging from small private drones to large commercial drones. The agency's vision is always flying forward. We weren't that creative. We just took ours and changed driving to flying, but you get the point. Which reflects its commitment to modernizing delivery, enforcement, and transportation infrastructure. Your newly appointed agency head has tasked you, the leadership team, to define one objective and key result to advance the agency's strategic interest in improving customer satisfaction. So, as a group, define your objective using a catchy phrase. For example, perfect wait. Define a key result as a measurable outcome. For example, reduction in truck pull-ins. And choose a potential target. like say a 30% reduction. Now remember, when you get in the room, all the stuff that Stephen started with you is important. What is value? What does customer satisfaction mean? We all come at it from a different angle. What's it worth? What's important to people who are drone operators out there? How do we use that to define what our objective over a 3 to 5 year period will be? And then what's one way we would measure that? What's one thing that if we pointed to, we say we could be successful? All right, Ava, I'm going to turn it over to you now to give any final instructions for the breakout. We're going to give you about 10 minutes. This is going to fly by. So just hit the ground running after some introductions once you get in there, and come back with at least one objective and key result. And we're going to do some round robin. We're going to ask people to share what their objectives and key results are.
Okay, we're going to open the rooms now, and you guys will be transferred.
Lauren, thank you. Sorry. All right, looks like people are coming back in. We got 40 folks. Now we left with 60.
Scared people off.
Bunch of chickens.
Exactly. I want to congratulate the 40 true believers that have stayed with us. If you had we're trying something new here. If you had a good experience in the rooms, go ahead and go up to the react button and just give us a thumbs up. We just want to see if folks had a good discussion in the rooms with their teams or not. 1, 2, okay, great. Okay. Wonderful. So it's good to see that. I see if I'm flipping through the pages, I can see some of the others. So I'm glad that folks had a good experience. And we had a couple people. Justin saw your text about getting sent to an empty room. We're going to try bigger rooms on the next one to sort of hope to solve that problem. So again, folks, you can do Agile even in real life like this. Get a little retrospective going and iterate and improve. So what I'd like to ask you to do is go into the chat and put in what your group's objective and key result is. Just put the name of it and the metric that you identified. And I'd love to have, for those who put it in there, like if there were a few folks that want to share what the discussion was about, I think that would be really helpful for everybody. I see watching over you. Oh, I like that. Eliminate drone impact in restrictive airspace. 0 incidents. Great. Flight right. Ooh, see, I like naming things. That's how you get Neuraja, Craig, Nick. Licensing type should be intuitive and clear. Licensing reapplies are due to option confusion. 80% of license applicants don't need to reapply for a different license. Again, so you guys are aiming at the churn. First one was aiming straight at safety. Next one is really churn and the confusion over applications. Catchy phrase, licensing the future. Key result, reduced time to receive drone license. Great. Target 35% reduction. Great. So want to reduce the time. So again, they took a slightly different tactic. It wasn't so much about reducing confusion and having to reapply. It was about just getting it done quickly. Drone accountability. Tail numbers like on planes for drones and an app to identify a report target. 100% increase in accountability. Wonderful. So that was going again back to the safety. So what is business value? Is it, and to the customers, is it around safety? Is it around speed? Is it around churn? These are great discussions to have. And I can tell you, this is exactly why it takes months to define these things right. If there was a simple right answer, you just walk in the room and put it on the board. I would love for, someone, we got another one. Increase customer confidence in drone operators, compliance with regulations, privacy, FAA regulations. The metric, 35% reduction of drone use in restricted areas through use of technological monitoring. Catchy phrase, we see you. Oh, privacy advocates would love that one. We see you. I would love for Mikey or Juliana or Christy or Steve from DEQ or Nicholas or Barbara, someone just who or anyone from their teams or anyone who didn't even put it in there. Someone tell us a little bit about the conversation that you had. How did you arrive at consensus? what were some of the other ideas that folks threw out? What are some of the other metrics or catchy phrases? Just tell us a little bit about the conversations, because I think that'll give us insight into exactly what your leaders are doing. Go ahead.
I can do the flight right one. This is Nick. So I'm sorry. There was a fourth person in our group. I forgot your name. I was typing Najira's and Craig's, and then I got to that one, and we got pulled back in.
It was
the four of us.
It was Todd.
Todd, thank you, Todd.
That's why Gerald liked our slogan, because I know Gerald.
There we go. So there we go. So so we had the advantage of a DMV folks a member. So he knew we needed to make sure it was some sort of alliteration or something snappy for a title. So we came up with Flight Right. I think the conversation was pretty slick. How we just kind of thought about, we went through the strategy elements, tried to think the high level, and then try to focus in on that OKR level. And we actually got to the business value part before we got to what we'd actually define the key results. It was kind of fun. We almost came up with what we wanted to do before we knew what we wanted to do. We knew the result of what we wanted to do before we really defined it. So it's kind of neat how it's not always a linear process of strategic down to the tactical. Sometimes it'll bounce around on you a little bit, and you almost have to go back and finish your homework before you can that goes into that. So that's kind of what I think we ran into. And if Todd, Craig, or Najira have anything, I guess we're it.
Yeah, Nicholas, I think you hit on a couple key points. I'd love to hear from others, but it's iterative. There isn't one right order in which to do it. And sometimes, it's easy to articulate or to get to the business value and then back into the metric 100%. I mean, this is the part, those conversations are where the art meets the science to these things. This is not a giant analytical exercise. This is a strategic exercise where we're looking maybe at customer feedback. We did a large-scale customer survey. We're talking to people who interact with our customers every day, and we're thinking through, what do we as leaders really, what's our strategy, our mission, our vision, and what do we think value looks like? And so great points. I'd love to hear from some others. And Mohan, I see you, Safe Skies, Smart Flight, 10% small-scale transportation, business to drones. Love that. So would love to hear from some others.
So this is Christy, and our group came up with the Clear Skies, Clear Rules, and we actually had a ringer on our team. We had a drone flyer that was a certified drone, and so they were able to help kind of guide us with issues they had seen. So that really kind of helped direct our conversation.
Yeah, what was that's awesome. Often great to have an expert in the room on something like this, on any of them. What was the conversation like? If you could just take us into that conversation for a second. Where did it start, and how did you get to where you got to?
It started for us begging for the prompt because none of us could remember. We just kind of read through the prompt, and then the person, I don't want to call them out, but they're welcome to speak out, that was the drone flyer. Kind of help spitball some ideas and talk about an issue they had seen. And that really kind of just helped funnel down our ideas and conversation.
That's wonderful. Does the drone person want to identify and speak up? No pressure, always choice.
I can speak up.
Who is the mysterious voice?
It's Vicky Jarvis with the VSP.
Oh.
Yeah, I owned a couple of drones, and I had them registered with the FAA, whatever it is. But they offered up a free course when I registered my drone, and I took that course. And I had a group of friends who had drones also that didn't take the course or register, and flew his drone into a public park, and he was fined $200 for doing so. So that was what I had to offer. Yep.
That's a very, customer could, I could see an objective of, I can't think of the catchy phrase, but yes, something around not having to pay fines anymore. It's like click it or ticket for drones.
Right on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Anyone else want to share or we'll move on to the next exercise. But we've got time for one more group to share some insights, maybe something that hasn't been said yet.
It's time to rethink your approach to education, whether you're a working adult, picking back up where you left off.
I think that's a recording from somebody else's background. All right. Well, folks, I'm hoping this gave you a little bit of a taste of it. Again, I think you get the point here, but it really is a series of conversations, and a lot of interesting things happen here where you may have an expert. You know, sometimes you bring in an expert. You don't have a bunch of data analytics folks being able to run the numbers, because maybe it's something there aren't a lot of numbers on. Bring in experts who understand the space. Bring in your folks who work with customers on the front line in this situation, or if it's an operationally focused OKR, bring in people who are doing the actual work themselves. This is the time to involve a broad set of people. For us, it was even beyond our top 30. While the top 30 are the ones making having the real discussions, we would at this point be going out to the subject matter experts and the managers and the individual contributors in the front line to ask them, what do they see as important? What are their perspectives on what customers want? When we did it with employees, we engaged frontline employees around the strategy around a fulfilling employee environment. And for public trust, we actually went out and talked to a lot of customers and brought some of them in. We had cross working teams with the Trucking Association, with the VADA, the franchise auto dealers, and the independent auto dealers. So talking, gathering insights and iterating. That's how you get to some really good OKRs that you could look at and say, wow, if I did that in the next 3 to 5 years, if I actually accomplished that in 3 to 5 years, boy, I would feel really successful. The people who were involved in that effort would feel successful, like they'd done something. And the people who would be impacted by it would feel like it made a real difference. That's value. And that's how you take a very subjective, squishy thing and turn it into something that now, with an objective and a key result, you can jump into what we're going to talk about. So if we can, Ava or Lauren, can we put the presentation back up? Right. Somebody might need to mute. There is some background noise coming through. All right, I'm going to talk to you. We'll go back 1 second. I'm going to just highlight. So now I've grayed out the mission, the vision, the strategic interest, the objectives, the key results. I only point this out because I'm a former consultant of over a decade and still recovering. Your leaders can't tell you to go and prioritize your work better and run the portfolio better if they're not willing to spend the months of work to get that top part right. Because you just won't know what you're trying to optimize for. But we are going to get into the portfolio strategy now. How do you define the initiatives that are going to advance your OKRs over the next 12 to 18 months? How do you prioritize those frequently enough that you're not having to make, it's really tough to make trade-offs over 12 months or 18 months because we feel like, gosh, if my idea doesn't get prioritized, I got to wait a year and a half. I may not even be here. So what's the shortest time box that you could really prioritize around a DMV? It's a quarter. We do it every 90 days. But then you get into how do you prioritize and what are the specific metrics and the ROIs that you need to try to calculate so that you can take the 300 specific ideas that you have and figure out which 50 you're going to try to go tackle in the next 90 days. So I'm going to play she couldn't be with us, but our portfolio lead and chief product owner, Latrice Lampy, is created a video and couldn't be with us today. But go ahead, Ava, and play that video. Hopefully, did you join with sound? We're going to find out in just a second.
My name is Latrice Lampy, and I am the Portfolio Director and Chief Product Owner at DMV. Unfortunately, I was unable to be with you today, but I am excited to talk to you about what Commissioner Lackey just shared and how it translates into work across the agency. First, starting with my responsibility, my office, the Portfolio Management Office, also known as the PMO. We are responsible for the prioritization and portfolio process. We also interact with leadership at all levels across the agency, and we lead and host conversations with our employees to garner new ideas in our Idea Garden and ideation sessions. Let's talk a little bit about our work structure. We started this portfolio process with our IT project teams. about 16 teams about 18 months ago as our IT operations was transitioning from a traditional workspace to an agile workspace. Most recently, we've incorporated in our non-IT project teams, about 15 teams. These are projects across the agency that don't involve technology or system enhancements, but are major initiatives on our portfolio. We work in 12-week iterations or quarters. We've asked teams to think about as they identify work an 80 to 20% work capacity rate, 80% being tied to their projects and 20% being available for the unknown. Now, we get reports and additional requests that come in, and also things that we call red planes. As you see illustrated here on the screen, a red plane for us is simply unplanned work. As a team plans out their quarter, if a new priority comes in and it adjusts those plans, it is deemed a red plane. We found it important to monitor red planes because we've developed such a structured process that if we're getting more unplanned work in after we've planned a quarter, it really messes with the integrity of our process. And lastly, in this process, we've also developed goals for ourselves. One of the goals that we have set for us is to maintain 70% of our quarter work to be in continued work. We already know that most of our projects exceed 12 weeks to complete, and 30% being contributed to new work. And so we've done a great job in these last couple of years running this process, maintaining that goal. Now let's talk about the heartbeat behind it all, how we work. We've developed a collaborative and structured approach called our 4-tier portfolio and prioritization model. We call it STAR. STAR represents strategy, target, analyze, and rank. Strategy is the start. Our tier 1 process, it starts with strategy. Commissioner Lackey convenes along with the PMO, his designated staff, and we sit down and allow them to identify the direction and focus of the agency going forward. Which OKR are we aligning to? Is there a strategic interest that we want to focus on? From there, they identify the focus and they start to compile a list of projects they want to do. They identify the project name, the initiative owner, which is the person who's going to lead the project, and the timeline to complete it. Now, as I said, this is a collaborative process. Once we start with that list, we then move into tier 2, which is target, where we start interacting with those initiative owners to get feedback from them. They have the opportunity to pose questions, make changes, and offer counterproposals, along with providing rationale for the change. From there, we comprise a list. That list is important because it then moves us into tier 3, which is analyze. The PMO has developed an intake process that's a series of questions through Microsoft Forms that balances projects, balancing the level of effort versus the value. They're answering a series of questions, and those projects that have been identified all have to be entered into the intake process. At the conclusion of intake, we have our prioritized list. Now, for the sake of this conversation, let's say it's 75 projects. At the conclusion of our portfolio intake process, we will have a project list of 1 through 75. And I want to say now that list is simply a conversation starter. It is all based off of how the requester submitted the project, but it does not put one project more important than the other. And then from there, we take that list, collaborating again, convening the full group, Commissioner Lackey and his designees, in addition to the PMO, all of the initiative owners and the responsible managers for the projects that have been identified, to come together and come to an agreement of that prioritized list. It's an opportunity for negotiation. If you feel that your project at number 40 should be higher on the agency priority list, that manager or that initiative owner simply says that, and we have a discussion around that. But at the conclusion of that meeting, we do have our final prioritization list that teams then go off and for our quarterly planning sessions. We've done a lot of great work to get to this point. Our quarterly planning session is just us giving visual representation to executive leadership on the work we want to do next. Teams are spotlighting and providing statuses on projects for the current quarter. They're bringing up red planes and ad hocs and deferral projects that occurred during the current quarter. But mostly, they are giving that visual picture, as you see illustrated here on this slide, on the work that they plan to do in the upcoming quarter. Stickies represent different things on this wall. Some stickies represent solely a project that a team is going to handle on their own. And then another color will represent the dependencies that they have with other teams. And so, for an example, if I was starting a project at the start of a quarter and not talking to my dependencies until later in the quarter, you would simply see a string in the additional person's swim lane along with another color sticky showing when we've negotiated that timing. We've done quarterly planning now for about 1.5 years. We commit a day to non-IT, 2 days to IT, and we build time into that time frame that they're with us to allow them discussions with their dependencies so that those negotiations are taking place live at the actual session. They also identify milestones for their projects and any questions that they have for executive leadership since they are in participation as well. We've done a lot of great work. We've put a lot of structure and time around this process. I want to say thank you for allowing me time to share what we're doing here at DMV. Should you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or to my team. Also participating with you today is Ava and Lauren, who are happy to field any questions. Thank you so very much and have a great day.
Thank you,
My name is
Latrice. We're going to go over, and I'm going to let Ava and Lauren describe our last breakout. What I will say, and there were some chats in the comments, that chart, you saw little things above it. Each one of those is a sprint for the next release cycle. I will tell you, I can't read it, as the commissioner, and I can tell you my executive leadership team can't read it, in the sense of we don't really understand it. But what it is to get to that point, we've done our work. We've talked about what our priorities are. We've talked about the OKRs. We've engaged in getting to that list of 75 things that we say we want done. And then the teams are getting to the next level of detail. What they're breaking that down even further to say, okay, well, what do we need to do to deliver this initiative in sprint 1 through sprint 8? And how do we need to coordinate with the other 8 teams? Right. And how do I then need to block my calendar and make time for it? And where am I connected or dependent on other people? We know that all that stuff is important. And we know that we're not going to be able to understand that level of detail, but the teams understand it. They debrief us. They stand up in the room and debrief us on what that is. But that's their manifestation of our priorities. And that's the key. As long as the people who need to use that understand it, at that level of detail, that's the key. So Ava, are you going to debrief this next one? Okay, you're on mute. Still on mute. You want me to do it? Still on mute. All right, maybe I'll do it. I'll do it in the interest of time. All right, so we're going to read another prompt. We're going to put you into breakout rooms. Just know as soon as we break you out, we'll then copy and paste the prompt in there, and we'll give the slightly bigger breakout rooms. So your agency head from the drone control board was so impressed with your objective and key result, so much so that he shared it with the governor. They were super excited. Well, now, of course, they want to see your plan for putting this OKR into action through a specific set of initiatives. So the governor's office has asked your agency head to present it tomorrow, because why give you a week when I can give you 12 hours? So the problem is you haven't actually finished those initiatives, right? You just got through your OKR. So instead, what your agency head is going to do is, thinking on her feet, she's going to say, I am not going to be able to give you all the initiatives, sir, but I can give you the structure that we're going to use to develop those initiatives. So since good ideas are worth borrowing, I would suggest adapting the STAR structure, which we just showed you, which is strategy, target, analyze, and rank, for use at the drone control board. Well, again, we'll put that into the chat for you. The task. These are some of the questions we want you to discuss as a group. When we come back, we'll if we have time, we'll do a quick debrief, but we may not. How will you collect your initial set of initiatives? Okay, where are you going to get those ideas? Are they coming from the leaders? Are they coming from individuals? How will you decide who will own the initiatives? Initiatives without owners aren't really helpful. Doesn't mean that person has to own it forever or be the one to do all the work. But how do you figure out who's going to take lead on an initiative? Who's that single name that's going to be against an initiative? So if it gets raised up or prioritized, they go do a set of things. Who will you involve in prioritizing which initiatives you go after? How high up do you want to go in the organization? How much bottom up feedback do you want to receive? And how will you ensure everyone that needs to contribute to an initiative is actually on the same page around the work that they need to do? So we're going to break you out into groups, have you discuss those questions, and then we'll come back and quickly share any big insights. We're going to give you about 6 minutes for this. So it's going to be kind of a quicker conversation, and you'll get those questions in the chat. So Ava or Lauren, I'm going to ask you, go ahead and break everyone out. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Welcome back, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope those conversations were engaging. Ava, do you want to do we're going to do a quick popcorn style debrief just to get a couple insights from y'all on how and share what you want. You probably got into some conversations around how you do it, at DEQ or VDOT or VSP. I'd be curious to learn from others too. But where do you get the initiatives from? Who do you assign the ownership of initiatives to? How do you engage people in prioritizing them? Can folks share some of their experiences either from the conversation or their own institutions?
Well, I got in a room with a couple of DMV folks, so we got to hear all about the process there. So that was kind of neat to kind of to compare that to more of the agile tenets and the principles, and see how it seems that there's a lot in common, especially in the prioritization and the initiative intakes. I think they called them.
And Nicholas, that is great. I mean, I think anyone following those agile tenets likely to develop systems that are similar. What were some of the things that were different though? What are some of the things that were for you stand out that were you did differently at DWR?
We're a smaller shop, so we're much more easily able to focus on a more cozy, if you will, prioritization process where we can have everybody give us your top 10 and then give us what you think the agency's top 10 should be, and then we can compare and contrast that. And that's how we help try to boil up the low-hanging fruit stuff, and then the other stuff that's more focused on, maybe something that's required by law or something along that lines, that we had to get something that, even though it's just new to the list and things are already being in process, sometimes things get bumped up. So as opposed to the rather substantial intakes list that it sounds like DMV has to work through.
Yeah, no, well, and that makes a lot of sense. It's also why I'm a fan of frameworks like Scaled Agile as opposed to maybe some of the more complex ones, because
Looks like we're waiting for him to come back.
He froze again.
While we're waiting for Gerald to get his microphone situation back, any other teams that would like to report out? What was the process in your breakout session? So, Julie, you mentioned in the chat that the initiative comes from the product owner generally. I think that's an indicator to how we've got things arranged at VSP. In other words, we've got teams that are assigned to specific internal customers, and those internal customers, by the time that information gets to the team, the prioritizations have been set by those internal customers. So the product owner understands, this is where I want my product to go, and this is how we're working together.
Oh, let's see. Can you hear me back, Stephen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. This is Alka Dakar. I'm at VDOT, and I would say that we have a very mature process of ranking and prioritizing projects at VDOT. Actually, we have board, strategic board. We call it STIB and non-STIB projects, and we have a threshold of the projects, right, which are kind of CTP level and internal agency only level. And the strategic board, they have division heads, I would say, division administrators from all our different organizations. And all we have a project request, there's a form, and whoever, business owner, outsider, anybody can submit a project request, and it goes to a portal, and then it's picked up and it's presented in that STIP board, and they prioritize it. It's a very mature process. I mean, we've been using it for years and years. And once they prioritize it, it goes to different teams we have. We have different project teams, different portfolios. It goes to that, and within that portfolio, we again prioritize and assign projects based on the cost. So I would say it's a very matured process, and we rank it based on many criterias, and it's all higher up. They rank the projects. By the time it comes to us, I'm like a program manager there, and there are many projects under me.
And Alka, I appreciate you sharing that. Again, I think you guys have a budget in billions. We're in hundreds of millions, and you're measured in tens of thousands of people, and we're in thousands. Can you describe what are some of the ways that you see the Agile principles playing out in that more mature process? Because obviously, the more people and the more money, the more structured it needs to be. But how do they still maintain some of those core principles in your mind, or how have they changed it over time to incorporate those principles?
And sorry, let me step in here. We really only have a couple of more minutes for this that before we need to break out.
So you may have, Alka, you may have the last word.
I was just talking about the IT projects, not the roadway projects or construction or any other projects, just the IT projects. And we have everything. I mean, we started Agile in 2016, I think, and we have everything: mixed mode, Agile, scaled Agile. I mean, Kanbans, you name it, and we have it. Everything over there, and it's been working very well.
Great. So you pulled the pieces that worked for you guys and created something unique to VDOT is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. VDOT Agile, VDOT Kanbans, yeah.
Great. Well, I'm gonna, I'll turn it back over to Stephen here. I think we'll end on that brilliant insight. We didn't get a lot into the theories of different scaled Agile models and things like that. But what I will say is there is not one right recipe, right? And even if baking a chocolate chip cookie, you have a great recipe based on the principles. But if you're baking it for 10 people and you're baking it for 10,000 people, you need very different processes. And so there is not a one size fits all when it comes to Agile. I'm so excited to be a part of this community. And Stephen, thank you for inviting us to present what we're doing at DMV. We're able and willing to answer any questions, and also excited to learn what others are doing over time. So appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much, Gerald, and Evan, Lauren, and Latrice as well. Thank you very much for the time that you spent preparing for this morning and guiding us for the last hour. So it's time for our morning break. We're going to take 10 minutes, and we'll be back at around 10:30. So see you all shortly. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're about to start our second session of the morning with our firearms team. The name of this session is Ready, Fire, Aim. VSP's firearms team delivers value. And obviously this is a photo of the team, but they are in that team room together, and we give them a second. We'll get that photo on that camera on the screen as well. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Julie to introduce and give you a little history about the team. Julie. Need to unmute, Julie.
I keep hitting the camera button and not the microphone. Thank you. I'm Julie, and I'm the Scrum Master for the Firearms team, and this is the Firearms team. The firearms team was formed in January of 2020 to replace the first VCheck system. We're going to go into more detail on what that is in a minute. And then VCheck 2 was deployed a couple of years later in January of 2022. The current team that we have here at the table with us was formed in January 2023. So we've all been working together for some time. And our current charter is to make George's life easier. He's our product owner and he's sitting here, and eliminate vulnerabilities on the system. So that's the firearms team.
Thanks, Julie.
So,
George, you're next. What you got?
yes, sir. So I'm George Garcia. I'm the manager here at the Virginia State Police Firearms section. Also the product owner over here of the VCheck program. What I was going to give you a highlight of what we actually do here in the firearms section. It's more of a public safety issue. It's not so much that we're making money here at the Virginia State Police, but we're ensuring the safety of the Commonwealth. People, at the end of the day, what we do is people walk into a store, point to a gun that says, hey, I want to purchase that gun. So what we see here in Virginia is we see a little over 510,000. That's what we're in line for this year, of people attempting to purchase firearms in Virginia, and that's on a yearly average. We have 29 folks. I'm slotted 29 positions in our section. So what that means, out of 29 positions, we normally have a vacancy rate of about 40 to 50%. So I'm hovering somewhere in the 17 to 18 people range out of the 29. So when I went up to the IT folks, and they're truly amazing, I went up to the IT folks and said, hey, listen, I want to do something. The main focuses that we deal with here in firearms is we deal with public safety, we deal with productivity, we deal with confidentiality, and I want to build a program so simple that anybody can kind of use it. Any of my dealers, which is my external folks, which is about 2,000 people at any given month, or any of my internal folks, because we have a very high turnover rate. So when we start looking at statistics, you can kind of see that we started off in about COVID, we had about 720,000 transactions. We're somewhere in the 503,000 transactions for last year. We're going to be picking up, and it's going to be 510,000 this year. But we want to make something that my folks can look at a transaction, make sure that it's up and running, make sure that we can approve or not approve somebody. If we make the wrong decision, or if the system is configured incorrectly, what actually happens is somebody who's not supposed to have a gun gets a gun. That's a huge liability on the Commonwealth. One of the few jobs I've ever had that we're not here to make money, we're here for public safety. So if we get it wrong, we're putting somebody's life in danger. And that's a big deal. So we want to make sure we got a very simple program. You can see the number of denials. So on average, out of 503 or 504,000 transactions last year, we had about 5,500 people who got denied. Of those, about 1,800 people went out for investigation. That means 1,800 people committed felonies in Virginia just by trying to apply for a firearm. So what I love about this group here is they've created a very simple program, very effective program, which absolutely works with the public safety aspect of it. It increases the productivity of my folks working there. So if you can just get to the next slide for a second, if you don't mind. Thank you. And so when we're talking about a simple program, when I first started pre-2018, out of the 500,000 transactions that were being run at the time, about 5.5% of the external dealers of my 2,000 people were actually using and calling in the transaction and not actually using the computer program. And we can see over the course of the years that the computer programs become more user-friendly, and more of my dealers are starting to use the computers. What that means to me internally, that's less phone calls coming in. That's more time my folks can actually focus in on making the correct decision. Hey, are you going to be approved or not approved, right? So it's a huge, you really start seeing the numbers. I mean, we went half of what 2018 is in a very short amount of time. So that's definitely credit to what we do over here and what you folks are actually developing for us. And then this is actually pretty interesting. So the value of the enhancement that you get is a year after it's actually in production, right? So as you guys were developing stuff in 2023 and 2024, we were capturing the data there. So we looked at, in a small section of 15 to 17 people working, You've saved us 2,353 hours just in 2024 alone, and we're projected to be over that number. And every year we keep adding simple functionality that increases the public safety confidence in us, right? Because we don't want to be on CNN, we don't want to be on any of those major news networks. You increase your productivity because you're making the computer smarter, right? We've determined that there are certain things a human doesn't have to do, which is going to increase productivity. And if they don't have to do these repetitive tasks and the computer can do it, it's definitely going to let them focus in more on actually doing transactions. And then the confidentiality, right? We want to make sure that their people's social security number, their PII information that you guys have pumped or we've pumped into the system doesn't get divulged. That's another thing that would go on CNN, God forbid, if any of our systems got hacked or anything like that. And then just make it a very simple program, right? Make it something, because I have a high turnover rate and we always have new dealers coming in and new sellers coming in. Make it something that's easy for the user to use. Ironically, every other year I go to the FBI Academy and we have NICS conferences. And something that I learned from the NICS conferences, they love to highlight VCheck. And of all the states out there and all the point of contact states who actually do it, they love to highlight VCheck. So they'll ask me every now and again, hey, George, what have you guys developed recently, right? And here's where the value is. We have Washington State, who has a little over 720,000 transactions. They have 60 people. Delaware's getting ready to come online. They have about 40,000 transactions. They have about 30 people. So when you look at Virginia, who does 503,000 transactions, and we're doing it with 15 people, that is amazing, right? So they constantly keep telling me, hey, Bipartisan Safe Communities Act, that just came out not too long ago. How many people do you have working on that? That's over 9,000 to 10,000 transactions a year for anybody who's under 21. And I say one person. They said, how is that possible when the FBI itself has 4 to 5 different people working not even nearly those numbers? And that's got to do with the automation that you guys give us. So we listen to the dealers, we listen to the staff. One of the great things is I'm a user in addition to being the product owner. And then you guys help me kind of develop what we're our final end game, right? So that's my piece of it. Just those 4 topics, the value that you guys are bringing to us is the public safety aspect of it, the productivity aspect of it, the confidentiality aspect of it, and make a simple program, simple for people to use. They want to use it, not make too many complex rules for the user, and really we'll definitely see the benefits to it. But the fact that the FBI just keeps saying, hey, anytime a state says, I want to be a point of contact state, I don't want the FBI to do the backgrounds, I want to do the background checks as a state police. The fact that they say, call Virginia, talk to Virginia, see how they're doing it, that is a huge feather in our cap, and that's nationwide. So just kudos to you folks and to the Scrum Master and to the support we get over here from the command staff and from Stephen and what have you. I'm super proud as a product owner here because I'm a user. We kind of see what happens. We take your input. That's super amazing. And we're just building a program that just keeps saving hours and now at the thousands of hours. And we're just going to build something here very soon that's probably going to put me over the 3,000 hour mark a year. That's huge for the Commonwealth. All right, so we're not here to make money. We're here to save lives. And if we get it wrong, we jeopardize people. And then that's the benefit of what we're doing. That's our business value.
Well, George, thank you very much for that introduction and explanation for what the Firearms Transaction Center does, and then how the Firearms team supports that. Where we're going to go next is we've got a few questions to ask of the members of the team to sort of have the conversation about what business value really is and what it means in this context. So we'll start that. What does business value mean in the context of the FTC?
So business value for me is, and I kind of hit on those 4 points, right? The public safety aspect of it, the productivity aspect of it, the confidentiality, and making a simple program. That is my business value. Make sure we, if somebody goes attempt to purchase a firearm, if they're legally allowed to have it and we can see all the records, that they have it. If they're not legally allowed to have it, let's deny them soon so a gun doesn't get in the wrong person's hands, place. That is the business value of what we're doing over here in the firearm section. Okay. I pretty much highlighted everything else with the other statistics, so I'm leaving that one question short. I'm sorry. I'm going to default to what I said earlier.
Not at all. So when you're writing stories as a team, is the phrase business value part of your inner conversation? In other words, is providing value part of your thought process from the beginning, or is it an afterthought?
Yeah, so usually the process start like George comes to the office in the morning. So he says, I have an idea. So from then on, we start working, thinking about the idea. He writes the stories. And then we start refining the stories and thinking about the how we're going to implement that story. During that process, we actually think about who are we benefiting with this? Are we improving the the effectiveness of our customers? Are they going to be saving time? Are they going to have time to do something else? Like George said, they can focus on different things. So yes, I think the answer to that question is yes.
Okay. So I know one of the things that the team does in every sprint is to determine which stories provide business value. So how do you do that? How do you determine which stories provide business value?
So to elaborate on what George and Diego has mentioned, George comes up with an idea. Maybe it is an issue that the team is currently facing, the business users when I say the team, or it might be an enhancement that George thinks of, which will make the application better with respect to the performance in terms of they might be able to do their job faster than how they are doing right now. So all these ideas George brings to us based on what issues the users are facing. And he brings them as stories. And those stories we discuss during the refinement, and when we are discussing each idea which is documented as a story, we discuss about not only the story as an individual entity, but we also look at it from a high level perspective, thinking about how this is going to impact our current business flow or our current functionality that we have right now. And we are going to, as a team, always think about the pros and cons of what the implementation is going to be and how can we get the idea to the end point, making sure that it is satisfying the product owner, and at the same time it is helping us to have an easy maintainability of the application. Any enhancement, we generally make sure that it is done in an efficient way so that business gets their value, and at the same time it is easily maintainable and manageable in the future for any further enhancements. So the stories sometimes, though George prioritizes them, we rearrange them if there are any dependencies. Like if a story needs any other task to be done before that is being implemented, then we document it and we discuss and we rearrange it and we align them in an order in such a way that they are being implemented correctly, so that we don't step on each other's toes while we are, because multiple developers and QA work on this team. So we can work in parallel, address the dependencies, do the ones that address the future stories first, and then align them properly and rearrange them, and then get to the final task, meaning deliver it as a logical chunk. So that's how we basically prioritize them.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Tanuja. So is there any discussion or negotiation around individual stories providing business value or not? And the reason I ask this question is I know that the amount of business value that the team provides is tracked as a metric for each sprint. So I wonder if there's any discussion within the team about, well, that one should count or that one shouldn't.
So definitely there is a discussion or negotiation happens when we prioritize a story. So this happens during the refinement and the planning, and this actually happens when the whole team decides on what the priority of the story is. If there is a if there are few stories and we have to prioritize them and bring them into the current sprint and work on them and deliver the business value. So definitely the discussion happens between the team, and the team together decides the priority, and we give points, and then we bring into the sprint and work on them. Yep, and I will add there that you mentioned discussion or negotiation. Sometimes it's arguing. Some other folks that aren't necessarily in this room have different ideas about what constitutes business value. And at State Police, we talk about functional versus non-functional as a way to sort of figure out what is the user going to be interacting with, what's going to make their lives easier, what's going to save them time, are there going to be reports that they don't have to manually create anymore. Those are things that we think of as business value. But things like security updates, we spent months doing REL upgrades for security. It's great to not be on the front page of the Richmond Times Dispatch. That's a business value.
Yes, ma'am.
But we can't demo that. We can just say, these are the number of stories that we spent time on for the REL upgrades. So there's this discussion about what actually is business value, and that is ongoing. And if you have any ideas about that, I'd love to hear what you're doing at your company in the chat. Thank you.
So, Julie, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that difference of opinion. You said that there's some folks outside the room who have a different idea about what business value is. How does that manifest itself?
Well, that manifests itself with comments over the wall while we're talking, or during meetings. We'll say, is this functional or is this not functional? Meaning sort of like business value or not business value. And you'll hear, yes, it is, because it's not something the user will see or interact with at all, but it's something that, definitely does add business value, intangible type of benefits. I mean, the system itself is sort of intangible. You can't touch it, but virtual type benefits. And if he's on the call, he can speak up. It's not shy. Nope. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So every team has to do some work that does not meet the definition of business value. How do you decide whether the team's going to do something that doesn't meet that definition in any given sprint?
So the discussion happens, adding to what Julie has just said. So the PO and the team sit together and we prioritize the things in our backlog, and if there are any migrations, or if there are any security vulnerabilities, or if there are any technical debt, or if there are any proof of concepts which we have to do before starting the new enhancement, or if we have to kind of do automation. We very recently did migration and automation, and there was not a direct business value, but it actually has some indirect value adding to the application, because it helped the other teams also for the automation, which we wrote a script for. So that helped there. And we just prioritize the stories, and the whole team does it together. So we do this during the refinement, and we ask the PO if he's okay, and if they don't see the direct impact, but there is an impact, and there is an indirect business value to whatever we do for the security vulnerabilities. So yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from the chat. Who makes the final call on what the team works on after that discussion?
So the team together?
Yeah, it's kind of a negotiation, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I'm interested by that answer, actually, because I think the classic agile answer would be the product owner is responsible for that decision. So how does the product owner's responsible merge with, well, the team kind of decides together?
So the only time I would interfere with that decision is if there's a legislative change that has to happen at a certain time, right? Otherwise, we have the concepts, we have the epic, it goes in a certain direction. They decide, hey, listen, it would make more sense if this epic goes before this epic or what have you. All of them are providing functionality here for the Firearms section team. So it's still a collaboration with what you're doing. Again, the only caveat is going to be if I have a legislative change and it has to be in by July 1st, then that is the legislative change. It's a mandate. Those have to take priority. But otherwise, it's small knit working group that works amazingly well together.
And it includes our product owner. So when we're talking about negotiations in the team, we're including the PO. So if there's a priority from another part of the business, that they can make that point to the product owner, just like Barbara put in the chat. Why is the information security officer putting requirements on the team? They're going to the product owner and explaining what the product owner needs to do. But those types of things are things that the product owner then has to manage as far as priorities. How important is this in the scheme of things? So we are very cognizant of trying to make his life easier, because that's what we're doing. So we want to get stories in each sprint if we can, that will do that.
Okay, excellent. I'm reminded, Julie, of your description of the team's goal, which is to make George's life easier.
Yes, whatever makes his life easier is what we want to do. And Nicholas put something in the chat. The product owner prioritizes. The team would be largely empowered to make the decision on what they work on. Yes, which includes the product owner's input. That's exactly it. That's what we do. Thanks, Nick.
Okay, so does complexity factor into the business value calculation? Do you say,
yes.
well, this is an easy one, it must not be very valuable, or this one's really hard, and do we want to work? How does that work?
Yeah, so yes, definitely the complexity is a factor in the business value calculation, but indirectly, I would say. Complexity in terms of business value means effort, difficulty, the time required to do the task, and also the number of resources involved. In this journey, we might see some technical challenges, and also there might be some dependencies on the other team, for which we need more time to do the task. It's not like complexity makes the business value down, but it's just affect the time and the risk needed to deliver it. Like if there are more complex projects, and if there are, they might need more resources, and if there are no sufficient resources, sometimes it might be the development or the testing. It becomes more difficult if there are more multiple tasks that are to be done simultaneously. That affects the implementation of those tasks, which affects the value indirectly. And in order to handle this, one way is what I feel is like we can ask our product owner if the 8-pointer stories or the complex stories, if they can be splitted into small chunks, or depending upon the priority and the requirement, if the task can be delivered, it should be delivered now, or it can be done later. On a positive note, complexity helps us understand the plan better, and we can avoid surprises.
Okay. So one question in the comments, complexity is also an understanding factor. So if the product owner thinks it's simple, but there are factors of technology that make it more complex, is there a conversation there, or is that more around just, well, this is still going to take longer than you think it is?
We always have conversations around complexity. So the product owner comes with this great idea. He comes bursting in the door and he goes, guys, I have this great idea. And we're like, oh yeah, that's wonderful. And we sit down and we talk to him about it. And several hours later, we're like, this is going to be extremely complex with what we have going on. And we can do it, no problem. But how long do you want it to take? So definitely complexity factors into those decisions as well.
So how does the team build understanding of the needs of the Firearms Transaction Center?
So for this one, we have an initiative that I'm thankful for having that initiative. It's called Good to Great. So we have different exercises that we practice. One of the exercises was getting to know the customer. And in that specific exercise, we do the initiative to read their vision, mission, and strategic objectives, kind of to see how we can support them in and delivering value to the business, which is really important. Not only that, but we also have another activity, and this activity was related to meeting with a trooper, which is kind of a different view of the system. The system has different views, right? We have the external users, internal users, and internally we have different users as well. So kind of to learn what was important for him at that moment, how we can make his work faster, better, a way of for him to see what information he didn't need to see, etc. And then we have another activity that was, kind of sharing with the users. We have pizza. George brought pizza. So everybody was happy because we were eating pizza. And not only that, we heard about their inputs, right? What do they like about the system? Is it making your life easier? Is it really helping you here, there? And, also kind of taking the criticism as well, because that's part of the input. So that way we learn what can we do to make their life easier and better. So I think.
If I can just add one thing to that. I love the Good to Great. I love the fact that they come into the office and they can actually see what their product is doing. They can hear the phone calls coming in, right? So on one Good to Great, yes, you heard probably a ton of phone calls coming in. And if you walk in again, you'll see a lot less phone calls coming in, right? You see the number of staff. They actually they're not just coding. Ganesh actually went to a gun show and actually saw how our computer system is interacting with the public, right? So this is more than them just coding stuff. They're seeing the product actually being used live and in color and how it's actually interacting with folks. That makes a big difference. Because as I start creating the stories, you guys says, okay, I hear the phones, I see how the program's going, I see what the user's concerns are in addition to what George tells me. And this is an amazing group. It's a small group, it's an intimate group. Everyone's opinion is super important in my world. But you guys actually see the same things that I'm seeing. So when you're looking at the stories and you're developing the stories, you're like, aha, light bulb goes on. I got it. I know exactly what he's talking about.
Thanks for that explanation, George and Diaz. You both mentioned the phrase "good to great," and Julie put a couple of notes in the chat about that. That's a phrase that there are probably a whole lot of folks on this call don't understand in this context. Julie, I wonder if you could explain a little bit about what the Good to Great program is.
Sure. The program that Stephen Manley designed is a program that all the Scrum teams participate in. It has 7 patterns. Don't ask me to rattle those off because I don't have the list in front of me. It can't be trusted. But it helps the team get to know their product. It helps the team get to know each other, trust each other, work with the customer, just be a better team. At first we were all like, what is this thing? This is going to waste time. This is going to be ridiculous. Why do we have to do this? All right, let's just make Stephen happy and let's do this thing. And then everybody grew to love it. So we just come up with different activities to do every sprint for that. So it's great. Thank you, Stephen, for coming up with that.
Good job.
Yeah, I have been telling my team for some time now that it's part of their job to get better. And the Good to Great program is one of the ways that we work on that as teams, trying to get better at the things that we do. And you can see in the chat what those different patterns are.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, a couple more questions we've got. How do stories evolve into their final form, or do they?
Yeah, user stories are about to be a collaborative process involving the product owners, developers, QA, and stakeholders. Normally, each and every story coming into the sprint, there are a lot of back work is there. Like we should able to see like a initial idea of the backlog stories and what is the refinement process and who is involvement and how the process is during that refinement time. And the process is like to help us how to impact with that refinement and when the story will become to the sprint. So basically doing all this process, there are too many steps, like making on the story, like in broad idea, whatever the product owner has, the stakeholders are thinking about to prepare it and bring it to the team. And then we need to do the refinement. Like the process is like an ongoing process every time going to the sprint. Then we should able to do the refinement like to help the team to understand what exactly is the story is functionality going to implement and what are the needed for that particular moment and what is how we can able to develop it, all those that and ensure all the stories whenever is bringing on to this story discussion, so we can able to split it out like manageable enough to complete a sprint within the time frame. So split it as a small stories and making to improve the acceptance criteria while discussing all that and making all these like stories clarifying the intent basically to evolve it, making easy to each one and discuss about the dependencies and how we can able to develop and how we can able to process easy way and whenever we are going to making two changes, how we can able to adjust the story like in the enhancements and all those things. And this is like a process and making on to identify the backlogs to be get it in the slowly to the refinement to the story sprints. So basically this was involved into the product owners, development team, QA, and all the Scrum Master and stakeholders sometimes.
Well, thank you, Ganesh. But I've got one last question for you, and we've kind of talked around this up till now. Is there such a thing as non-functional business value?
So as a team, I think I would like to say yes for this question because there are few stories that we have done in the past couple of sprints, as well as we are going to implement them in the current and future sprints, which are under security vulnerabilities. So those stories, they didn't come from the product owner, but they definitely add business value in terms of providing a more secure application. And we are implementing those to make sure that we don't have any risk to our application. So those are one that fall under non-functional, but they definitely add business value indirectly. And sometimes our developers add stories in order to refactor the code. That is going to add a future value which the business cannot directly see because it's not something they use it in a daily life. But eventually, because of the refactoring, the code is going to get better, there'll be less defects, and going forward, whatever development is going to happen will become quicker and there will be easy maintainability. So all those indirectly add to the business value. It might not be what you see on the UI or use it in as a day-to-day job, but it's indirectly going to help us develop our applications faster. Also, sometimes we might change as part of our code change. It might be, sorry, it might be making the application faster. So that is going to help. That can give some direct difference to the user in terms of how fast a page is loading. When multiple external users are trying to access the application, how fast is the response? Things like that. Those are non-functional, which the user might directly not come up saying, okay, I want the response time to be this quicker. But still, we're going to do some improvements in that area so that the experience is better. So there might be some stories which we generally during our sprint planning categorize as non-functional, and we go ahead and do them so along with in parallel with whatever is coming up from the product owner, and they definitely add business value. And also recently we have been automating our application. It hasn't been from the beginning, but for the past couple of years, we have taken the initiative to automate. That definitely is looks like we are doing something which is not directly adding the value, but it is going to improve our future time and cost that they take in order to do regression. So we're going to deliver it faster because we are going to use our automation suite to regress the application faster for quicker releases. And our product owner, we are lucky to have a product owner who is seeing value in those. And in fact, we were allowed a few more than 2-3 months in order to have explicit automation as our sprint without having any functional stories, because they saw the value and they helped us speed up the process because we were trying to automate an application which was already in production. So our management who is helping us come up with efficient tools, and our product owner who is understanding why we are doing some non-functional stories to help make application better, is definitely helping us to be a successful team. And I think to summarize, yes, we think we are doing some non-functional stories which indirectly add to the business value of the application.
Awesome. Thanks, Tanuja. All right, I want to open the floor for questions from folks on the call. Any questions for the team?
We were so thorough. There are no questions.
You've answered everything so well so far. The other, let me ask Ava and Lauren and Gerald, are you still available? Can you join us as well? Any questions for our folks from the first session this morning? And I do have one question in the chat that's not for VSP, but for everybody else. Do you and your agency have a metric about going out and meeting your customers? And do you have a metric is too formal? Is it expected of you, or is that part of your normal practice?
I wish I could play a cricket sound right now.
Nick, how many subject matter experts does the PO manage in the VSP app?
Applications development, maybe? Is that what, like George has 2, but other POs have 1 or more, right?
Yeah, assuming Nick is asking George, how many folks does he have to deal with in getting ideas and bringing them to the team?
Perfect. So I normally get some ideas from my staff, from the customers and stuff like that. As far as one of the benefits of having a smaller team, and when I always say that this is a simple, make something simple for me, right? Simple for the user. There's a lot of complex rules in feed check that the system already does on its own. But I don't have too much overhead to get these things pushed through, because what I'm doing is I'm showing the value, how many hours you're saving, right? They rely heavily on, because I am a user as well as a product owner, on my input and saying, hey, listen, if you think that this is a good idea, it's still within the legal ramifications, what have you, we're going to allow you to push through, because we're seeing the numbers that you're pushing through. We're seeing the hours that you're saving. We're seeing the number of staff that you have to still work with. We're seeing that, hey, the FBI is reaching out on saying, listen, this is still a great product, and this is an in-house product. So as much as, and Stephen, I just want to mention this real quick, as much as everybody keeps looking to the product owner, I'm going to look back to the team and say, it's not the product owner, it's really the team. You guys have developed an amazing, amazing program. If I come up with an idea, it's not me, it's really them who's doing it. I'm just receiving the benefit of everything that they're doing. So I'm not, as much as I kept saying George today, I'm just going to keep pushing out the FTC team, because it's really them, you know. But as far as the overhead, I don't have too much overhead, because I like to show numbers. And once I see the quantifiable numbers of how much time we're saving, on average, and this is something I just never mentioned on the front end, on average, we run one criminal history background check every minute, or every 45 seconds. So my folks are making a decision, go or no go, every 45 seconds, to on the high side is every 2 minutes. Come Christmas time, come the holidays, when it gets a little bit busier, we're running about 5,000-6,000 transactions a day. Couple hundred, 300 to 400, sometimes 500 transactions an hour. And when you start looking at a staff that's 15, half strength, that's why my department is really not giving me too much of a headache as far as what enhancements I want to push through, because they're going to trust my decision. It says, listen, you're a user, you're the product owner, we're going to trust the decision, what enhancements, and then these folks develop me a great product. And then some of my users, some of my command staff are purchasers in the store too. So they see the value walking into the store of how quickly we can operate. And then that's super, that definitely impresses us, because they come back and walk into Firearms every now and again. Hey, I was at a gun store this weekend, and guess what? I went pretty quickly. And when you start seeing that, the same lieutenant colonels, the same majors, the same stuff who are making the decisions on the budget, that's pretty awesome, right? So some of the functionality we're building now is to make it faster. So if they thought they got a great experience with the text messages that we provide them with the simple system we give the dealers, if they thought they had a one heck of a bang for the buck for that, you wait, man. Hold your helmet. It's gonna be a ride. It's gonna be a ride. They're gonna be super impressed.
Thanks, George. Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, this is to the team. What has been, and can you kind of talk about an example of a feature that you put in that you thought was going to be awesome and it was just a bomb, or it just didn't go over well? And then what small thing did you put in that you didn't expect that just was an incredible hit?
That's a good question.
I'll let you guys say if you have something first before I answer my piece of it, because I get the direct contact from the dealers.
Yeah.
So you mentioned teams, so I want to see if they had any input. We put in a texting functionality, super simple, where you can put your phone number in on the front end, and the minute we approve the transaction, it goes through, right? Dealers really like that. The customers really like that, because they wouldn't have to wait at the store. They can go to the Subway, grab their sandwich, spend some time with the family, especially during the holidays. And they get a text message once the transaction's approved. We put, and that was for the customer specifically, we did that. For the dealer, we did some color coding, so they can add a quick visual, see what's going on to the transaction. Is it delayed? Is it denied? And if it's denied, and we can share the reason, we would kind of give like a little legend, right? It would give them more of an idea of, hey, is this something that the dealer screwed up and that we just missed the ID requirements and we have to do something else to? So the dealers really got some functionality of that. We have a part of our system also. We have a lot of different users. Part of our system also is if law enforcement and agency is doing an investigation on somebody, they can notify us, and we actually create some kind of internal notification in the system that the next time the person attempts to purchase, it's going to send them. It used to be shoots up a message and then the supervisor would call them. Well, now they're getting an instantaneous email saying, hey, by the way, this person's in this door trying to purchase one handgun. I know you have an investigation on them, right? If you don't call the Firearms Transaction Center in X amount of time, we're going to approve the transaction, right? So this is a lot more immediate response to the dealers. So the troopers love that. The ATF loves that. The customers love the text messages. The dealers love the color coding and requesting forms through the system. You can see that the dealers like it because you can see that the numbers of people calling in goes down. And if you see a spike, it's only because we're getting more new people and we have to register them, and we're just not. We're there to register them quickly. It's a process sometimes where we're putting in 50 to 60 people sometimes a month into the system. That's a lot of users, especially when the seasonal time comes in. So, I mean, we get a lot of good feedback from colleges, from the law enforcement, like the SROs, from our regular law enforcement, from the customers, from the dealers. They're getting instantaneous feedback anytime they walk into our shop from the folks. I remember when VCheck 1 was replaced by VCheck 2. I think the first comment my folks says is bring VCheck 1 back, right? Bring VCheck 1 back. This is horrible. And now if you ask any of those folks, hey, do you want to bring VCheck back? I think they're gonna say, hell no. I mean, this is way better. So I mean, that's just a credit. And I keep saying the real value is what you guys have provided us. I can provide an idea, but this is a homegrown system that you guys have built. You're intimately involved in. You have direct contact with our office over there. Even though you don't speak to the dealers, you don't speak to the troopers, you see the value of if I screw this up, something bad is going to happen. So hopefully I was able to answer that question for you, sir.
Thank you.
Biggest sale days, if you don't mind. Biggest.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Quiz.
Oh,
That's
just
a
kidding.
quiz.
I was going to give you the answer. I'm sorry about that. I was going to give you the answer.
Don't give the answer yet.
Whoopsie.
We have one guest for Christmas. We have one guest for Thanksgiving.
We're closed on Christmas Day.
And we have 2 hands raised for Barbara. How'd you do that?
Mother's
I don't know. When I tried to take it down and I would have put it back up again, it gave me 2 hands. So.
Oh, that's funny.
That's a deep. You did not test it properly.
Did you have a question?
I did. It was for Dr. Lackey or VDOT, if that's still a option. I'm just going back a little bit to the meet the customer, know your customer. I think you guys mentioned net promoter scores. Where are you getting that information that enables you guys to drive the NP score? And I think that ties into knowing your customer because it's usually where they come from.
Could you ask that again?
Yes. So I believe I heard Dr. Lackey say net promoter score, which is a way of finding out customer satisfaction. And my question was to them, where are they gathering their data? Because it usually comes from the end user to understand how well received an application or service is. So I'm tying that back to the meeting the customer or knowing your customer.
Hey, Barbara, I don't think that Gerald or the rest of the team is still on the call, but I'd be happy to pass that on to them and get you an answer if you'd like.
I'm sorry. I was looking at all of the screens and I thought we invited them back. Okay. Thank you.
Did we miss one of Nick's questions? Oh, who sells the most firearms? Green Top is our biggest single hunting license seller for DWR.
Yes. Green Top, yes. If you start talking about Academy is a new store coming out there. They're more of a box. Green Top is more of a, yes, they're big, but it's more localized to one store and regional. Academy's breaking out now. We used to have Cabela's and stuff like that. Cabela's is starting to get away from it. Walmart's always been a big gun thing, but now Walmart started kind of restricting their gun sales. So seasonal kind of, but we're definitely seeing right now Academy, Green Top. Absolutely, I love that store. And you know, sir, and Justin, you brought up a question, and I don't think I answered it fully. I don't think we've developed, I don't think that the team has developed something where we thought it was going to be a big hit and it turned out to be a flop, right? I'm really trying to, and as I was sitting here, I was really trying to think about it because I'm getting the input from the dealers, and one dealer likes to talk to another dealer. And the fact that you see more people hopping onto the computer, not away from the computer system, I can't think of any one enhancement that we didn't get a big bang for the buck for. And they're simple concepts. It's a lot of hard coding on your end. But because they're simple concepts and they're easy to use, we're getting a lot of great functionality out of them.
Awesome. It looks like Ambina Henry asked, on the strategic level, were the highs and lows of implementing Agile into the departments, what would you say was key to implementing Agile into a traditional environment? That's tough. There were so many different things. A willing team from a Scrum Master perspective, and an enthusiastic product owner also is super, super important. What do you guys think?
I think if the product owner understands, the value that Agile adds to the equation, and compared to a traditional environment, I think if they understand that, and from there up,
yeah,
the whole hierarchy understands that,
yeah,
that makes our job easier.
It does. But in the beginning, how do you explain the value? You just show charts. These Agile teams are better.
Yeah.
How you do it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Could be. Yeah.
And somebody goes, sure, let's try it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, I certainly have an opinion on that, having lived through it here. And I mean, what you're talking about is absolutely got to happen. I think communication is huge, and somebody has got to convince leadership that it's okay to try. You got to have, you've got to have someone in executive leadership who trusts you enough to say, yes, you can take the time to try this and see how it's going to work. Another key for us was training. We hired an Agile coach who spent a year and a half here working with us with each team, helping us all to come to a common vision of what Agile and what Scrum is for us and how we can make that work. That's key. And education up and out of IT is also critical. It's part of that communication question as well.
And I really think that those two questions are probably good for an entire conference.
Definitely, and it's part of why we do this conference, actually. Well, I think we're going to call that for session 2, which means it's time to turn the mic back over to our retrospective folks. So Barbara and Andre, if you would, take over and guide us through the retrospective.
All right, folks. You should be seeing the retrospective board. We didn't see anything as far as having issues getting into the board, but you can go ahead and continue to add as I'm speaking, or go in and read the ones that are up there and give a thumbs up, thumbs down. But I'm just going to go from left to right because let's talk about what went well, and then we'll go to the other two. So I think they're slightly in order, but I'll go ahead. Let's see. So the top one would be the last one that was placed on the board, is the way this works. So I'm going to go to the bottom then. The interactive poll went well. Option of a QR code plus text number. Anyone have any other feedback for how the polls went at the beginning? This would have been Stephen's piece. Great. Well done, Stephen. The opening translated and transitioned well into the first session. Stephen, are you writing your own cards for yourself? I'm just kidding.
I have not done anything here, I promise.
All right. The next one was engaging with other agencies. So that feels like that one broke into the second session. So this is feedback, or for the first session itself, Stephen doing the introduction. So engaging with other agencies. So is it fair to assume that was, if anybody wants to come off mute or interpret themselves, I read that as it was the chat rooms that made it engaging?
Just had a comment here. A thumbs up that one, Barbara.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like we have so much to learn from each other. Plus, I'm really curious to see how other agencies are doing things in this conference. And this is a connecting point for that. So I just love that part of it.
Looks like we have at least Nick plus 2 more thumbs up, same echoing the same theme. And I also put one in there as well. For me, it enhances, anytime I have that kind of interaction, it enhances the virtual experience. I don't think it's an impediment because I don't think virtual experiences are any less valuable than when we can gather folks in a room. In fact, most of the time we get higher participation because of that. But that I like to feel connected. If anybody knows they work with me, I like to say good morning in the chat, and I'm very annoying and I'm like, I'm leaving now. But that connection helped me to feel closer to the presently 47 people who are also on this conference. Let's see, let me just make sure there's nothing else for the first 2 sessions. Oh, first session. Loved the first session where we learned about real strategies as opposed to just talking about agile concepts. Okay, and I think there was something else about the first. Nope, that's the second session. Okay, breakout room discussions, we're to continue to get good feedback on that. So great job on the breakouts. I think if the technology works, the intentionality behind breakouts are everyone's got their hands up and are all in favor. It's the technology, and then just making it clear on what is it you want folks to talk about. I'm going to go. Yes.
Barbara, sorry, I actually have a what didn't go well for the very same thing. So
okay.
When you get to that.
Okay. Yep. It looks like there's a suggestion of something about breakout rooms. Okay. Thanks, Justin. Okay. So I have Nick said that the camera at VSP, the zoom in feature was nice. So is that the OWL technology in the room?
Yeah, we're zoomed in on who was talking.
Okay. Yep. Thank OWL, whoever the manufacturer of OWL is. And for those who have ever used that type of technology, it's a plus and a minus. So if you happen to be coughing, it zooms in on you and you're like, no. But no, it's nice for these types of forums. And again, it helps you to connect in a virtual environment. Okay, so, that's number 2. Okay, so second session, let's go ahead. Awesome presentation by the Firearms team. Great Q&A and lots of thumbs up. I'm going to even add one myself. Enjoyed that. Second session, hearing straight from the team instead of, say, solely the perspective of the Scrum Master or product owner is a road less traveled. Nice perspective. Any comments on that? Okay. Enjoyed the interactive element. Oh, that's session 1. Okay, let's see. Have we covered everything? Oh, here's one. Enjoyed the approach of a high-level strategic perspective of value, followed by a team who actually implements the value. So I guess that's VDOT giving like, hey, here's how we look at how we gather value initiatives and how we as a PMO and organize it and prioritize it. And then we had a conversation, that's the way I read this, is with an actual team that says, okay, it's been organized and prioritized, now we get it, and this is what we do with it. Great. Anything else for what went well? Okay, Justin likes the owl too. No, it is good. All right, let's go to opportunities for improvement. What didn't go as well? I'm gonna say initial video upon joining the conference early was annoying. I ended up muting the sound. So I heard two things. So this is it's a very barbarism, but I see initial video, which me is visual, and then the back end of it was the solution, which was muting. So I heard visual and audio. So maybe sounds like there were some audio issues.
No, this is mine. I'll just say it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Actually, it was coming through quite clear.
Okay.
Again, and this one's a bit selfish, I guess you could say. So as a Scrum Master, I was watching a presentation that basically I give presentations on. So it wasn't any value to me, but then I realized, oh, well, there's not other Scrum Masters in here. Maybe it'd be value to them. It's a good lead-in. I just personally didn't find any value in it, so I muted it. So that's why I put that.
Reinforcement, Justin, maybe? Oh, yeah, what I do is I am doing the right thing.
Hey, you want me to share? I'm sharing. So.
Oh, no, please. Anybody else? No, good. It is a good point. So thank you for being trusting and coming off mute. Do you have a thought of what type of or topic or subject what you would prefer to see?
Nothing. Don't do a video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just music or
just nothing, just waiting. I mean, music could be fine too. That'd be okay.
Okay, great. We'll add that to, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do here. Wait a minute. Probably where are you? Initial video, I do this, and I then watch this, guys. I make that an action item. Ha, because we can do something about it. Okay, keep getting added to an empty room for the first breakout session. So maybe we should just talk about, okay, yeah, I'm going to let you talk, and then anything else that has to do with breakout. So go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, that was mine as well. I don't know what happened. Actually, first it was just Andre and I guess he's in a supporting role for this. So we both decided to go back to the main room, and then I tried to join another room, and it kept dumping me in an empty room. I don't know what happened. I did see where a bunch of people were invited, but for whatever reason they didn't connect, or maybe they dropped from the call altogether. I don't know what happened there. So that was my experience.
Other feedback, just that it was a little bit clunky. Doesn't necessarily sound like it was necessarily the facilitator. It might have been a little bit of it sounds like the technology too, if you're putting people into empty rooms.
Yeah, the clunky thing with me, that's the thing where it's like, you get in the room, it takes a second or two, people start popping in, and then, it's, you get that 30-second countdown. 30 seconds is not a lot of time to wrap things up. But we had like 20 people drop. We went like from 60 to 40 in that first breakout session, and I think that orphaned a lot of rooms.
Yeah, and I think as well, there are some people who listen to this kind of going on in the background, and may have stepped away to like get coffee. And so when they were broken up into a room, they were technically still on the call, but they weren't there or available to participate. And so I know, or they had an issue come up and they had to step away from the computer for 10 minutes or whatever. So I think that's also sort of an issue with that. And especially if you have a breakout room that only has 4 people and you got 2 people who aren't really able to participate, then that kind of limits, the value of the breakout session.
Good point. I just put myself into that space and thought to myself, if I was I couldn't be fully engaged in the conference, but I wanted to know what was going on, I probably would have left very quickly so that they didn't put me in a breakout room. Okay, oh, yes.
Sorry, is there a way to maybe have people opt into the breakout room or sign up to do breakout rooms or opt out of the breakout room? That way the folks that didn't want to participate in it could.
There certainly is. I mean, you can set up the rooms and say, let people choose their own room. The risk there, of course, is that everybody picks the same one. You haven't gained anything that way. This was the first time that in this conference that we've tried breakout rooms, and we all knew going in that there was an element of experimentation and risk there. So we're learning, and we'll talk about that as we move forward.
Hey, yeah, that's an idea. If you don't go in a breakout room, then you have to listen to that intro video, and then that'll put people into the rooms, like what Justin was talking about. Anybody
wants to pick out the intro video, you're welcome to. Send me a suggestion.
I'm sorry. I watched it and I liked it. I was just kind of just joking that it sounded like a couple people were like, I don't want to watch this. It's like, okay, cool, go in a breakout room.
Don't.
I'm just one opinion, so thank you.
Yeah. As I say, I'm like the data point. So let's see. We've heard to VDOT, obviously the breakout rooms were not specific to the session itself, right? I think we're giving more commentary about the technology behind it and the functionality behind it. But I did notice one here, it says, second breakout, the tasks needed to be simplified or pick one and answer. Each question could have used allotted time. I'm going to hop in if the person anonymous wants to, well, anonymous, put anonymous, but maybe they don't feel so anonymous. I read this as the 4 tasks in the the tasks in the first one, a lot of them were really quick, like what is your motto? What's your cheeky, saying, and what's your qualitative metric and what's your quantitative, and it was like boom, 30%, you could say something fairly quickly. The questions, any one of those 4 questions probably could have been a breakout session on the second half. And that's not saying that, that's just an opportunity for improvement. Because I know our group, we were just, I think we went through them looking for one that we could answer the quickest. I don't know if anybody else, I mean, that's the way I read this, but does anybody else have any different interpretation?
To add to that, Barbara. Sorry, just to add to that, I agree with you. It was too much for the 6 minutes they were given. Like by the time we actually got around to coming up with some answers, it's like, oh, we got 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
And we had to, so we only got through the second question, I think, and that was rushing. So I was in a real breakout room the second time, so that worked.
I mean, they were good questions. They just, each one of them just probably needed a little bit more time. All right. I think we talked about the filled rooms, folks not engaged, dropping off. Probably too much content planned for the first session. And I know those initials because we had to wrap it because you had to kind of give them the producers wrap it up.
And we went 5 minutes long anyway. Part of the reason for the lack of time in the second breakout session was because it got started late. There wasn't enough time to give it the full 10 minutes and yada, yada, yada. So,
yeah. So we can look at that as the glass is half full, meaning if it wasn't so engaging, if we weren't so involved, if the content, those types of things, we wouldn't have needed to. So it could be looked at that way as well. But to your point, Stephen, probably easily an entire morning could have been spent on either one of our sessions today, which is a continued challenge that we quite often have. Is how can we deliver the maximum amount of value in a compact period of time, but it's intentional. All right, and let's go to what can be improved. I'm just going to go in order. Okay, the example scenario used in the breakout room could have been simpler. I think that's tying back into what we talked about down here. That awkward silence in the second session was okay when asking the group for questions. It took a minute, and that's fine. Let's be patient or fill in the time with encouragement and technical notes on how to pose a question. Anyone disagree?
So does this mean if there's a minute while the team is thinking about the question, somebody should chime in with, how to answer the question, or what does that mean, Nick?
Yeah, I was just thinking if you know, because it seemed like we're like, wow, why aren't people immediately coming off a mute or immediately making a post? It's like it takes a couple seconds to write something out. So, you know, just kind of like, okay, if you want to answer a question, we're going to give everyone a minute or two to kind of get that rolling, and then as they come in, it all went fine. It seemed like we were kind of worried that we weren't going to get any questions. Like, oh no, nobody's asking anything. It's like, well, it just takes a second.
Do you mean in the breakout session?
No, at the end of the VSP session,
Oh, gotcha.
we opened it up to the full conference. There was a kind of the crickets comment and that kind of thing where we're like, everyone was like, oh, are there no questions? It's like, no, there are questions. They're coming.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure.
Okay, and I read through this one, this third one. It appears the chat room was a better experience for this person. Tip was that, oh yeah, I noticed this actually as well. When you put the prompt up, even though there were bullet points in the presentation, it goes into the prompt, it's just a continued sentence. And this is probably something that is just the way the technology works. So how can you pose, or maybe even pull them out and make them separate? How can you pose the tasks all on their own to make it so it's less time having to spend to figure out what questions you're asking? So it's a formatting opportunity. The information was there, the questions were there. I think it's just how they were formatted.
Yeah. How do you share that besides the chat? I was wondering about that myself. I don't think you can, right? Not with Teams. Maybe put a link to it.
I mean,
don't know.
Everybody has cell phones. So
Do they show bullet points in the cell phones, Julie?
No, I mean, they're using their cell phones to take pictures of the QR codes. They could take a picture of the screen ahead. So you could say, hey, everybody, grab your cell phone and take a picture of this screen.
Yeah.
You're going to need it when we get to the breakout room.
We can also recommend that people take a screenshot and share the screenshot of the prompt in the chat as opposed to copying and pasting the text, because we can share videos. So then you see it in the same format it was in the presentation when it gets shared to the rooms.
Yeah, screenshots or cell phone.
That's a great idea. Put a screenshot in the chat.
Yeah, I grabbed the screenshot, but I didn't share my screen. But that would have been a good idea too. That way everyone could have saw the snap. Like I just did the snipping tool thing.
Okay, thank you for your. All right. Any other ideas for improvement? We go back. I'm going to take you guys back to even what VDOT said. And we talked about value and knowing your customers. Well, you are the customers for the CAC. And we need to hear, we can guess what we think your value is, but only you guys can express it and for us. So choose your forum, reach out to somebody individually if you know them that are involved with the CAC, and I'm going to let Stephen do his public service announcement on that. But we need your feedback. We appreciate it. We might get a little defensive right at the beginning. No, I'm kidding. But at the end of the day, it's I can only be as good as I was. I need to be better today than I was yesterday, and a lot of that doesn't come just from yourself. So that's my words of wisdom to end up this retrospective. I appreciate everybody's time on this, and I'm going to hand it back over to Stephen.
Well, Barbara, thanks very much, and thanks to each of you for spending the morning with us. Believe me, we do not underestimate the investment that you and your agency are making by your being with us for 3 hours, and we really appreciate your being here. My heartfelt thanks to the members of the CAC planning team. Without this group, these events wouldn't happen. And if you would like to take a more active role in upcoming Agile conferences, the planning team is always looking for new members. Drop us a line at caac@vsp.virginia.gov. Incidentally, if you want to follow up on what Barbara just suggested and send us recommendations on how we might improve future conferences, that email address works great for that as well. Thanks again, folks. CAAC 17 will be on Friday, November the 14th. So mark your calendars, and we will look forward to seeing you then. And we're going to call that a morning. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Stephen.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.